Hello everyone, my name is Frohardt with Rost Martin, and today we're going to do a basic firearms lesson. Lesson number 3, weapons handling, firearms handling, and awareness. So now we're going to talk about how to properly handle a gun, basically when we're not shooting it. The value of this lesson is that anyone can shoot a loaded firearm. If I put a gun on the table, almost anyone can pick that up, point it at a target if it's not too far away, and have accurate hits. But people sometimes struggle with knowing how to manipulate that gun or handle that gun when they're not shooting. An example might be taking it from the range bag or just loading it and checking it and clearing it. So we're going to learn how to do it properly. It sets a professional apart from someone who doesn't do it that often. Now, before we actually demonstrate how we load a gun, how we press check, and how we clear and safe, we're going to talk about the principles. Anytime we can, we want to have some principles to test certain methods against. A couple of principles that I believe in are economy of motion and the use of my body's own natural dexterity and movements, meaning like when I can, I don't want to use contrived body motions. I want to use natural motions if I can. And then number 3, and this applies not just when you're loading, but when you're shooting, but it's especially important when you're loading, checking, and clearing, is to maintain your situational awareness. An example with economy of motion, I just want to have as few moving parts as possible. So I'm going to move my hands, but I'm not going to move my whole body if I don't have to, right? I'm also going to use my body's own dexterity and natural coordination when I can. So one example of that is when I take my magazine out of a mag pouch, I'm going to use that index finger to kind of guide it in, right? When I go ahead and load, whether I'm doing the initial load or the combat load or the slide lock reload or whatever you want to call it, I'm going to use, anytime I can use my body's coordination and dexterity, I'm going to. Now, number 3, we're going to maintain situational awareness while we're loading, checking, and clearing. And I'll give you an example really quick. Again, we're in a safe direction here. We have a safe direction there. I'm going to bring my gun out. It is clear, right? I don't have a magazine at this point, but I'm going to demonstrate how I'm going to do that magazine load. So I'm going to bring that gun up here when I load and make ready. And I'm going to do that while maintaining situational awareness. I'm not going to be like this, right? Now I've lost all situational awareness of what's going on around me. Remember I said we're training for a purpose? Like my purpose for training is concealed carry, everyday carry, and self-defense situations. So I want to maintain my situational awareness when I'm loading, when I'm checking, when I'm clearing that gun or whatever I'm doing. So I'm going to maintain it like this if I can, if the circumstance affords me to do so. All right, considerations. Just one other example of being a pro. Our training starts here, right? This is where it starts. If you remember John Wooden, very famous basketball coach, college basketball coach, before he taught people how to play, he taught them how to put on their socks and lace up their shoes. Like you can actually read that in his book. And that was just an example of how he paid so much attention to very fine details because he believed if his players could do those little things well, they could do the big things well. I'm not sure if that's true with putting on your socks and shoes in basketball. I was never good at basketball, but I can tell you it does apply with how we take a gun from the range bag to the table. Again, remember our 4 safety rules, right? Number 1, all guns are loaded at all times, right? Number 2, we want to keep a gun pointed in a safe direction, or we don't want to point it at someone or something we're not willing to shoot. So let's pretend that's downrange. That is a safe direction. We have a clear gun. And let's say my gun is in here just like this, right? I'm going to unzip this range bag and I'm going to come in and look at the gun. Right now, let's pretend I'm on a range. I'm on the firing line and the firing line is here. So I have shooters to my right and my left and downrange is that direction. I look at my gun and sometimes you don't have control of which way it's pointed in the range bag. Well, right now I can see that my gun is pointed that way. So just imagine that we're on a firing line, right? We have benches everywhere and I have shooters to my right and my left. I'm just gonna move my range bag just like this before I take my gun out. And now it stayed in a safe direction at all times, right? So that's just one small example of the best doing the basics better and how our training and our safety starts from the range bag or from the safe or from the holster or whatever you're doing. Now we're going to demonstrate our weapons awareness or weapons manipulation. And what I mean by that is, how am I going to clear this gun? How am I going to load this gun and do a press check and then clear it again? As I mentioned previously, almost anyone can just pick up a loaded firearm, especially if the target's close enough, and take shots and probably hit that target, right? What separates people that don't know what they're doing from people who do know what they're doing is how they handle that gun when they're not shooting. So how I load and make ready, how I do a press check, and how I clear and safe. And we're actually going to start with clear and safing a gun, right? So whether I grab this gun out of my gun safe or out of my range bag, or in this instance, I'm going to take it out of my holster and I'm going to clear and safe it, right? So I have it on the bench here, on the table right here, some dummy rounds. And you can see right now that I have a magazine in the gun and the slide is forward. I have no idea what's going on, right? So I need to know how to clear and safe this thing, and there's a proper way to do it. I like to make sure, obviously it goes without saying, that the finger stays off the trigger, or I'm going to bring the gun up to my workspace, okay? That way, remember I talked about maintaining situational awareness. So I am unloading this gun very similar to how I would do a reload. I'm just reverse engineering it, and this is good for my economy of motion, and I'm maintaining situational awareness. So again, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the source of feed, or remove the magazine, right? There's a couple ways to do that. Obviously, I'm going to press this button right here to release the magazine. Now, some people are going to cant the gun a little bit in their hand, just like that. That can work. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the source, remove the magazine. I'm going to clear the chamber. Then I'm going to lock the slide to the rear. I'm going to inspect the chamber. I'm going to look away, and I'm going to inspect the chamber again. If it's dark out and I'm training it on a dark range or whatever I'm doing, I might even put a finger in there to make sure that it's clear and safe. Then if I'm tabling the gun, this is important, I'm going to table the gun like that, with the gun locked to the rear, the slide locked to the rear, and the ejection port is faced up. And this indicates that I know what I'm doing, and if there's an instructor around, he or she can walk up and down the line and see that every gun is clear and safe. All right, to review, we bring the gun up to our workspace, remove the source, clear the chamber, lock the slide to the rear, inspect the chamber, look away, inspect the chamber again. If it's dark out, I can put a finger in there and make sure that it is an empty chamber and not just a dark space. Table the gun like this, that's downrange, the ejection port is faced up, and that's how I clear and safe the gun. We know now how to clear and safe this gun. Now we're gonna load and make ready. This gun is already clear and safe. It's locked to the rear. I'm gonna just double check, inspect the chamber. That's a clear and safe gun. I have here a loaded magazine. When I'm placing this magazine on the table, just for training purposes, I'm gonna have that magazine with the bullets facing up or that spine facing up. When it comes time to put it in the magazine pouch or my pocket, right, I'm gonna have those bullets facing in that direction so that I can just grab it like this. If you recall, we talked about economy of motion and using our body's natural dexterity as well as maintaining situational awareness. So I'm going to do this whole thing right up here in front of my workspace so that I can maintain situational awareness. I'm also going to try and use my index fingers to the full extent. I mentioned earlier that if I shut my eyes are shut, I can touch my nose, my chin, my ear, whatever, with my index finger, because my index finger is just very coordinated. So I'm going to use that to my advantage when I load and make ready. Also, when I load and make ready, I'm really just kind of doing a slow version of how I'll do a combat reload later. Again, that speaks to the economy of motion and having fewer moving parts. So how this looks is, again, index finger is where? It's on the frame. I'm going to bring that gun up to my workspace. That allows me to have good situational awareness. I'm going to grab that magazine with the index finger on the front spine of the magazine. Then it's going to come in here. I'm going to slightly cant the gun, right? So where I can see the magazine well out of my peripheral. Now I'm still looking down at those targets, right? And I can just go just like that and find it. And when I do that, I'm going to use the flat part of the mag to find the flat part of the mag well. It's just a lot easier. Some people try to go straight through and they kind of miss. Some people try to do it too far out. Like I would never thread a needle that far out. So I'm going to bring it into my workspace. I still have really good situational awareness. I'm going to bring it in. Now notice my finger finds that. I'm going to go tap it. I'm going to tug it to make sure it's seated. Now this is where I have a couple of different options. I have three, there's probably more, but I like to talk about three different options when I send that slide forward. And I like, first of all, I was taught to use the turn and pull method, but there are a few other, we'll walk through them. This is one way I like to do it. Tap it in, I tug it, I turn it towards the target, and I slingshot or pull, right? And now I could quickly take shots if I need to. I have good economy of motion using that method. There's very few moving parts. I can also use a lot of kind of gross motor skills versus fine motor skills. In some ways, it might not be quite as fast as using the slide release, which I'll demonstrate in a moment, but I was taught this way. I know there's lots of ways to do it. I'm just giving you options, okay? The next way we'll demonstrate, we'll just do a quick clear and safe. What do I do first? I remove the source, remove the bullet. I've locked the slide to the rear, I inspect the chamber, look away, lock the slide to the rear, inspect the chamber, clear and safe gun. I'll demonstrate the other way to do it. There's a couple of ways. The next way to do it, I call it, that was the turn and pull method. Now I'm gonna do the over the top method. And a lot of people were taught to do this, do it this way. I like this way, it works all the time. It maximizes kind of my gross motor skills, and it has pretty good economy of motion. For me, slightly less, but nothing changes. I bring it into my workspace. Again, it's okay at first if I have to look down at that mag well, but eventually I want to be able to load. I want to be able to load that gun without needing to look at that mag well, right? So right now I'm looking down at my targets and I've reloaded that, or I've loaded it. I get a tug to make sure that mag is seated, right? The next thing I'm going to do when I'm doing over the top is this. As the name implies, I'm coming over the top of the slide. I'm going to kind of push and pull, right? So I'm using some big muscles here. Now, if I had to, if I was close enough and I decided to shoot and I had what I considered a safe shot to take, I could shoot here. Obviously, ideally, I'd like to get two hands on the gun and come up and be ready to shoot, right? And that is our over the top method. The next method, again, we'll clear and safe real quick. Clear the chamber, lock the slide to the rear, inspect the chamber, look away, inspect the chamber, clear and safe. Last method is to use the slide stop, slide release. This method is probably quicker than both. It uses a lot of economy of motion. I was taught originally not to do it this way because of the emphasis on fine motor skills. I think some people are coming around and saying that's not the case anymore. Again, I'm not very dogmatic about this. I like to have options. I like to be able to do the turn and pull method. I like to be able to do the over the top method. And then I also want to be able to do the using the slide release method. And that is just as it sounds. I'm going to do everything the same, bring the gun up to the workspace. I have my index finger here, right? And that allows me to find that mag well without looking at it. And I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to tap it in, I'm going to tug it. Gun is going to go towards the target. Once it's towards the target, I send that slide forward with my thumb on the slide release. Now I could shoot here if I needed to. Of course, if I have time, I want to be able to do this. Okay, I'm done. I've decided to clear and safe. Remove the source of feed. Clear the chamber. Lock the slide to the rear. Inspect the chamber, look away. Inspect the chamber again, look away. Now I want to talk through a press check really quick. The press check is just how I make sure the gun is loaded. We'll go back through loading and making ready. Just so you see lots of repetitions. The gun is in my workspace. Again, I have good situational awareness. I have my index finger here. That means I grab it off the table, I grab it out of the mag pouch or wherever. I bring it in, tap, tug. Right, I'm going to use, in this case, the turn and pull or the slingshot method. All right, now I'm ready to shoot. Now, I believe that this gun is loaded. And we understand and we treat all guns as if they're loaded, but it can happen where you think you've loaded that gun and it's not loaded, or you've carried the gun for a while and you just need to be able to press check and make sure it is loaded. So I'll do this on the range when I'm training, just to make sure I'm loaded. I'll also do it, you know, maybe not as I'm running around town or anything like that, but I want to be able to check the status of my weapon. I want to make sure not only I have a magazine that is in the mag well and seated, I also want to make sure there's a round in the chamber. Now, some guns come equipped with what's called a loaded chamber indicator. I can see through this window right here that I can see brass through that loaded chamber indicator, so I know this gun is loaded, but I'm still going to practice doing it manually. And that's very simple. Again, economy of motion, not a lot of wasted parts here. I bring it back to my workspace. I'm going to inspect my magazine. Magazine looks good. I'm going to push it back in and make sure it's seated. I'm going to bring my gun up to my workspace, and I have a couple of ways to visually inspect the gun to ensure there's a round in the chamber. This is my preferred way. I'll kind of use my thumb and kind of bring it in close and just kind of pinch it, right, like that. I can use the front of the optic if need be, or I can just pinch it with these rear serrations, and I can see right there that I have brass in the chamber, right? Another way people might do it is this way, right? I'm not a huge fan of doing it this way because sometimes I have too much strength, and what happens is I might eject the round. I might go like that. Exactly that, right? So I like to do it this way. I'm loaded. Another great way to do it, you just have to be very aware of the muzzle. When you have these front serrations, you can kind of go like this. Not my favorite way, just because the hand gets so close to the business end of the gun. And there are other ways, you know, you see some people try to do it one-handed like this and whatever. I wouldn't say that's good for beginners. I really like to just do it this way. And now I can see like that. And if it were dark enough, I could regrip my hands, right, like that. And I can feel brass. I can feel that round in the chamber. I just have to be very careful of where these fingers are moving. Again, that's slightly more advanced. I'm confident on this Rost Martin pistol that if I just look through that window and I see that brass in there, that I am loaded and ready. So that's my press check. Right, now I've done a press check. I'm going to take an opportunity to do one more clear and safe. Again, nothing changes. The gun is up here at my workspace. Right, I'm going to first remove the source of feed, remove the magazine, clear the chamber a couple of times, lock the slide to the rear, inspect the chamber, look away, inspect the chamber, look away. And sometimes if I'm training with other people, I may even have someone take a look at it, have a buddy get a look at the empty chamber.